Let space do its work. The longer you step back, the more she begins to feel the difference. Psychology teaches us this. Distance can sharpen emotions, while constant presence can weaken them. You stop being the guy who's always available, always explaining himself, always running after her. And here's something most men don't expect. A woman can truly care about you and still slowly take you for granted. Not because she's heartless, not because she's playing games, but because comfort can become addictive. When your loyalty turns into background noise, your effort feels expected instead of appreciated. It stops feeling like a gift and starts feeling guaranteed. So you step back, you stop revolving around her, your messages slow down, your attention fades, your energy disappears, and suddenly the quiet becomes impossible to ignore. That's when everything changes. Now she isn't reacting to your words anymore. She's reacting to your absence. She begins replaying memories she once overlooked. She starts feeling the empty space you used to fill. She starts realizing that your patience was never desperation. It was self-control. And your loyalty was never weakness. It was character. So don't blame her. Don't attack her. Be smarter than that. Understand the dynamic. Many women test limits without ever saying a word. And when you keep passing every test by giving too much, she can mistake that for you having no other options. But when you finally step back with calm confidence, something switches inside her. Now she's left thinking, wait, did I misjudge him? And that's where time does its job. Time doesn't just create distance, it creates clarity. The longer you stay away, the more her emotions begin circling the space you left behind. Not because you're playing games, but because you stopped making it easy for her to feel powerful without earning you. So don't chase, don't beg, don't over-explain. Be solid. Be unavailable to disrespect. Be the kind of man whose absence teaches what his presence never could. And if you've ever been ignored, taken for granted, or you're pulling back right now and wondering what she feels when things go quiet, good, stay calm, let the silence speak. Because step by step, that's when she starts to realize she didn't lose convenience, she lost a man who wasn't so easy to replace after all. 1. When you stop reaching out. When you stop reaching out, everything shifts. And you need to understand this if you want control over your relationships, instead of being controlled by them. It doesn't hit her during arguments. It doesn't hit her when she's being distant. It doesn't hit her when she gives you the cold shoulder. It hits when your name stops lighting up her phone, when the good morning texts disappear, when the small updates about your day are gone, when the steady presence she quietly depended on suddenly vanishes. That's when silence starts working in your favor. Not loud silence, not dramatic silence, calm, disciplined silence. Here's what most men never realize. This isn't about playing games, it's about psychology and human nature. Most women are used to being pursued. They're used to a man proving himself, showing up even when she's warm one day and distant the next. So when you stay consistent no matter her mood, she feels secure in your availability. She feels certain you'll always be there. And unchecked certainty often turns into comfort, then into complacency. Don't resent that. Understand it. When a man keeps reaching out no matter what, she unconsciously relaxes. She assumes she has him. She may never say it. She may never even think it clearly. But her behavior shows it. That's psychology in action. But when you stop, when you truly stop, not for 24 hours, not as a dramatic move, but as a real shift in energy, first comes confusion. Why hasn't he texted? Then curiosity. She starts checking her phone more often. She starts scrolling through social media. She watches your stories quietly. And then the noise begins in her mind. Did he meet someone? Is he pulling away? Did I read this wrong? The silence that once felt comfortable now feels uncertain. And uncertainty creates attraction far more powerfully than constant availability ever could. You need to understand this if you want to learn how to love without losing your self-respect. Don't chase reassurance. Stay grounded. Don't demand attention. Be the man whose absence speaks louder than his words. Sometimes a woman pulls back as a test, not out of cruelty, not out of bad intentions, but to measure your emotional stability. She wants to see if you'll panic, if you'll overcompensate, if you'll give up your power. That isn't evil, that's human nature. If you respond by trying harder, sending long messages, asking for explanations, trying to fix something she hasn't even defined, you confirm that she controls the emotional frame. But if you step back calmly and redirect your energy to your mission, your health, your purpose, your growth, you change the entire dynamic. That's where psychology becomes powerful. Not through manipulation, but through emotional discipline. Here's the deeper truth. When your attention becomes uncertain, your value increases. When your presence is no longer guaranteed, it becomes desired. The things she once overlooked, your consistency, your humor, your reliability, suddenly stand out in her memory. Absence sharpens appreciation. Not because she's weak, not because she's dramatic, but because people value what is rare. This is basic behavioral science. It's also timeless wisdom, as Epictetus taught. If you want to grow, be willing to look foolish in the process. In modern dating, that means don't scramble to defend your ego, don't over-explain, don't perform for validation, be grounded enough to walk away from lukewarm energy. That is strength. And here's what happens next. She starts replaying past moments. She notices the change in your tone. She feels that you're no longer chasing, no longer seeking approval, no longer trying to impress. Now she's the one wondering. Now she's the one evaluating. That reversal is quiet, but powerful. This is why understanding psychology and attraction matters, especially for men who've built careers, families, and life experience. At this stage, you're not trying to impress. You're trying to build something real. And to build something real, you must first master your emotions. Don't reach out just because you feel anxious. Don't text just to ease discomfort. Be patient. Be composed. Let time reveal who truly values you. Because when you stop reaching out, you create clarity. Either she steps forward, or she fades away. Both outcomes benefit you. If she reaches out, it's because she felt the shift and recognized your worth. If she doesn't, you've saved yourself months or years of imbalance. That isn't loss. That's efficiency. And if you truly want to understand how to love in a healthy way, remember this. Love grows where respect exists. And respect begins with self-control. When she realizes you're no longer revolving around her attention, she feels the space you created. And space leads to reflection. Reflection creates desire. Desire leads to action. But none of that happens if you keep filling every moment of silence. So let the quiet do its work. Let your absence test her interest. Let your loyalty to yourself matter more than adjusting to her moods. Because the moment you stop reaching out, you stop bargaining for your value. And when you stop bargaining for your value, everything changes. 2. Remembering the little things. This is where it really begins. Not with fireworks, not with dramatic goodbyes, not with emotional speeches. It begins in silence, in memory. In the quiet replay of moments that once felt ordinary. You need to understand this. Women rarely miss the big gestures. They miss the small, steady, consistent ones. The good morning texts that never failed. The way you noticed her mood before she said a word. Her favorite snack you brought home without being asked. The tiny details no one else noticed, but you did. That's what lasts. That's what echoes over time. She may not have praised you. She may not have thanked you every day. She may have treated it like it was expected. Comfortable, normal, even taken for granted. But don't confuse familiarity with lack of impact. When you consistently showed up, when you led with calm, confident masculine energy, when you acted like a high-value man who didn't need applause to do the right thing. You created emotional safety, and emotional safety is rare. You made her feel seen, heard, chosen, not through loud promises, but through presence, attention, and stability. That's what separates a strong man from the crowd. Not noise, not performance, but depth, consistency, awareness. Here's the part most men don't like to hear. When she was caught up in her emotions and stress, she probably didn't see how much you were carrying. She may have made you feel invisible, and that hurts. But stay with me, because once you're gone, those little things get louder. The empty space where your texts used to be, the silence where your reassurance once lived, the calm that's no longer there. Your absence gains weight. It hits late at night while she's scrolling. It hits when an old memory shows up without warning. It hits when someone new forgets what you always remembered. When someone new gets irritated instead of patient. When opening up doesn't feel as safe. That's when comparison begins. Quietly, privately, naturally. And this is where time takes over. You must understand the psychology of absence. Don't chase, don't over-explain. Don't beg to be understood later. When you walk away with dignity, when you hold your frame, when you stay grounded in your masculine energy, you allow time to reveal contrast. And contrast is powerful. When she meets men who lack emotional depth, who don't pay attention, who don't truly see her, regret starts to settle in. Slowly, silently, because now she understands something she didn't before. She didn't just lose someone who liked her. She lost someone who genuinely cared. And men like that are rare. Let me be clear, this isn't about manipulation. This isn't about hurting anyone. It's about reality. When a high-value man removes his presence, the emotional structure he built begins to fade. Not with drama, not with explosions, but through small realizations, subtle disappointments, quiet moments where she thinks, he would have handled this differently. That's when the unraveling begins. Not because you attacked, not because you argued harder, but because you stopped giving what she once took for granted. Never underestimate the power of steady love. The world is full of excitement. It's not full of consistency. Anyone can plan a weekend trip. Not everyone can show up every morning with patience. Anyone can post romantic captions. Not everyone can listen deeply after a long day. Be the man who listens. Be the man who notices. Be the man who remembers. That's how you connect with women on a deeper level. Not through flash, through substance. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth is the moment your worth becomes undeniable. When you shift from chasing her approval to strengthening yourself, your health, your mission, your mindset, you start radiating something different. Calm confidence, emotional control, clear direction. That is masculine energy at its most attractive. She may not have fully recognized it when you were there every day. Familiarity can blur appreciation, but distance sharpens vision. Time reveals what noise once covered. You showed her a kind of love she didn't know she needed until it was gone. The steady kind, the mature kind, the kind that doesn't collapse under pressure. And by the time she understands it, you may already be out of reach. That's why you must never build your identity around being chosen. Build it around your principles, your standards, your growth. Don't become bitter. Don't close your heart. Refine it, strengthen it, keep your dignity intact. A high-value man doesn't beg to be remembered. He simply is. Now let's talk about the modern world. Attention is cheap. Notifications never stop. Options look endless, but emotional depth is rare. True presence is rare. Calm overreaction is rare. If you master that, if you anchor yourself in controlled masculine energy, you separate yourself from the noise instantly. When she scrolls late at night and sees shallow conversations, temporary excitement, inconsistent behavior, she feels the difference. She remembers your steadiness, the way you forgave without keeping score, the way you supported without demanding credit. That's what plays in her mind. Here's your instruction. Don't go back just because you sense regret. Don't return out of ego. Evaluate. Has she grown? Have you? Because your role isn't to teach someone your worth through pain. Your role is to embody it so clearly that it speaks without words. Time doesn't only reveal her realization, it reveals yours. You start seeing where you gave too much, where you ignored your own needs, where you accepted being unseen. Growth must go both ways, and if she ever comes back, it should be to a man who has evolved, with stronger boundaries, clearer standards, and deeper self-respect. Deeper self-respect. And if she doesn't come back, you still win, because you've become the kind of man who never loses himself in love. That is the real power. Let time do its work. Let distance bring clarity. Let silence speak. Meanwhile, build, train, read, strengthen your body, sharpen your mind, deepen your purpose. When you live as a high-value man, when you move with grounded masculine energy, you don't just attract women, you attract the right ones. And remember this, the little things matter, not because they guarantee someone will stay, but because they define who you are. Keep doing them, not for praise, not for validation. Do them because that is your standard. In the end, she may realize too late what she lost, or she may grow and meet you again with new awareness. Either way, you remain steady, you remain centered, you remain a man who loved deeply, walked away with dignity, and trusted time to reveal the truth. That is strength. That is clarity. That is how you win. If you're committed to that standard, remember this, the little things were never small, they were the foundation. 3. Playing it cool while spiraling inside. Playing it cool while breaking inside is more common than most men realize. If you're between 35 and 70, you've lived long enough to know this. Pride often looks calm while chaos grows underneath. When a woman realizes she took a good man for granted, she rarely admits it openly. Instead, she performs strength. She posts "living my best life" photos. She may entertain someone new, not because she's healed, but because she's protecting her ego. Looking unaffected feels safer than admitting loss. This is where psychology matters. As Marcus Aurelius taught, you control your mind, not outside events. That is the core of Stoic wisdom. So you don't react to her performance. You don't challenge her illusion. You let time apply pressure, because time exposes what pride tries to hide. In her mind, conversations replay. She revisits moments she dismissed. She questions her choices. She wonders if she confused your patience for having no options. She wonders if she mistook steady love for something ordinary, and that question grows louder in silence. Understand this. When you argue, when you chase, when you keep explaining yourself, you remove mystery. You remove tension. You give her emotional certainty. But when you step back with composure, when you develop an iron mindset, when you refuse to beg for approval, uncertainty replaces comfort, and uncertainty forces reflection. Modern dating encourages distraction, endless scrolling, instant attention, public happiness. But distraction is temporary anesthesia. It is not healing. The louder the distraction, the deeper the unresolved emotion. And when she sees you improving quietly, training, building your career, traveling, developing discipline, smiling without bitterness, it shakes the story she told herself about you. She expected you to wait, to come back, to prove your devotion by chasing. But you didn't. You stayed grounded. You lived the principles. You didn't just talk about strength. You became it. And without a single word, the power dynamic shifts. As Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And in this context, bravery means emotional restraint. It means choosing self-mastery over desperation. It means you don't rush to ease her discomfort. It means you allow her to sit with the possibility that she misjudged a man of real value. That silence becomes heavy, and the longer you stay away, the more space she has to face her own choices. This isn't manipulation, this is discipline, this is self-respect in action. This is the iron mind choosing dignity over impulse. Many men ruin this stage because discomfort tempts them to reconnect. They send the just checking in text. They reply instantly to every story. They try to look friendly and available. Don't do that. Don't interrupt the process. Don't rescue someone from the lesson life is teaching them. When she feels the absence of your consistency, when she notices the gap where your steady presence once was, that space becomes a mirror. She starts asking harder questions. Was I too distant? Did I undervalue his loyalty? Did I assume he'd tolerate anything? Those questions only appear in silence. They only appear when you stop performing for attention. This is why Stoicism isn't about being cold. It's about clarity, not punishment. Principle. In today's world, attention is currency, and when you withdraw it calmly, your value rises. You're not playing games, you're showing standards. You're proving that your time, your energy, your commitment are privileges, not guarantees. And when she sees you building without bitterness, not speaking badly about her, not trying to provoke jealousy, not competing for validation, your composure unsettles her more than anger ever could. Anger shows attachment. Silence shows independence. Independence forces reconsideration. As Epictetus taught, suffering comes from our judgments, not events themselves. So when she begins to see the breakup as her loss instead of her freedom, everything changes. Regret doesn't explode overnight. It builds quietly, in moments when she expects you to text and you don't, when she expects you to fall and you rise, when she expects you to stay the same and you evolve. This is the long game. This is strategic patience. This is ancient wisdom applied to modern relationships. You must internalize this. Your strength is not loud. Your value is not proven by chasing. Your confidence does not depend on her approval. Repeat it until it becomes instinct. You don't chase. You improve. You don't argue. You advance. You don't beg for closure. You build momentum. That is the iron mind in action. Steady, deliberate, unshaken. The longer you stay silent, the louder her inner voice becomes. The longer you focus on purpose, the clearer your worth appears. The longer you stay composed, the more she faces her own decisions. And whether she returns or not becomes secondary, because the real victory is internal. The real victory is mastery. It's training yourself to respond to emotional chaos with discipline. That is stoic strength at its highest level. So here is the instruction. Build your body, sharpen your finances, strengthen your social circle, deepen your knowledge, protect your peace. Don't perform your growth for her. Let her notice it indirectly. Let time do what arguments never can. Let distance reveal what presence once hid. If regret comes, it will come naturally. If realization arrives, it will arrive without force. And if she never returns, you still stand taller, calmer, stronger, more refined than before. That is what matters. That is the mindset of a man who lives stoic wisdom daily, who carries an iron mind through love and loss alike. Stay composed, stay progressing, stay silent when needed, and let time expose truth without you saying a word. A powerful psychological shift happens when you step back and truly stay away. Most men between 35 and 70 underestimate it because they focus on short-term reactions instead of long-term influence. When a woman realizes she may have taken a strong, grounded man for granted, she rarely admits it openly. Instead, she performs composure. She posts polished photos. She talks about living her best life. She may even entertain someone new, not because she's forgotten you, but because pride needs a mask, because ego avoids exposure, because looking unaffected feels safer than admitting loss. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes your advantage. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have control over your mind, not outside events. That is your battlefield, not her social media, not her distractions, not the noise. Understand this clearly. When you withdraw with dignity, when you stop explaining, when you stop chasing, when you stop reacting, you introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is louder than confrontation. The human mind craves closure. It craves control. It craves reassurance. When you remove those comforts, the mind begins to replay, reanalyze, and reconsider. She may look calm on the surface, but internally she's revisiting conversations. She questions, did I push too hard? Did I mistake his patience for weakness? Did I assume his stability was replaceable? This isn't manipulation, it's human nature. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you that matters, but how you respond to it. When your response is disciplined silence instead of emotional pleading, you shift the power dynamic without saying a single word. In a modern world where attention is currency and validation is everywhere, your absence becomes rare, and rare things gain value. While she may distract herself with social media highlights, subtle flirting, or carefully curated happiness, those are coping strategies. They're defense mechanisms designed to protect her pride. Beneath the surface is inner conflict, and when she sees you improving, training, building, traveling, advancing your career, becoming calmer and sharper without her, it disrupts the story she told herself. The story that you needed her more than she needed you. That disruption is where the unraveling begins. Don't misunderstand this. You're not waiting for anyone to break. You're allowing reality to settle in without interference. You're letting time reveal contrast. And contrast is powerful. She assumed you would chase. She assumed you would wait forever. She assumed your loyalty meant guaranteed access. Your silence contradicts that belief, and contradiction creates anxiety. The longer you stay steady, the louder her inner questions become. Was I too distant? Did I overlook his consistency? Did I mistake calm strength for something ordinary? That internal dialogue grows because you are no longer there to soothe it. Women, like men, are deeply uncomfortable with unresolved emotional tension, especially from someone they thought was predictable. This is why iron mind discipline matters. Most men ruin this stage by breaking contact too early. They send late-night messages. They react to small signals. They look for reassurance. The moment you do that, you release the pressure that time was building for you. Remember this. Time works for the man who can endure it. Time exposes impulsiveness and rewards restraint. Stoic strength isn't about killing your emotions. It's about mastering them, channeling them, controlling them, refusing to let short-term discomfort decide long-term outcomes. When she posts that she's thriving, don't take it at face value. Understand the psychology. Projection often hides processing. While she may look unbothered, internally she is comparing, analyzing, measuring. She's weighing what she lost against what she now has. And if what she encounters lacks your stability, your grounded presence, your emotional maturity, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Regret doesn't explode overnight. It builds quietly. It matures slowly. It transforms into a wake-up call. As Seneca wrote, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And imagination becomes her companion when you are no longer accessible. She imagines you moving forward. She imagines you connecting with someone who truly appreciates you. She imagines a future where she is not included. Imagination can be far more unsettling than facts. Do not perform bitterness. Do not post indirect messages. Do not try to provoke jealousy. That is insecurity disguised as strategy. Instead, fully embody Stoic wisdom. Improve in silence. Build in silence. Let your growth speak for itself. Visible progress without outreach is psychologically powerful. It communicates self-sufficiency, and self-sufficiency is magnetic. Understand this core principle. The longer you stay away with composure, the more space she has to face her own choices. Without your interference, space amplifies reflection. Panic, if it arises, does not come because you argued. It comes because you didn't chase, because you didn't beg, because you didn't validate her assumption that you would always be available. That is where realization sharpens. In today's fast-paced dating world, where options seem endless, discipline is rare, and rarity commands respect. Build your iron mind daily, train your body, refine your finances, strengthen friendships, pursue purpose relentlessly. Stoic mastery isn't about winning her back. It's about winning yourself back. Paradoxically, that often rekindles attraction. Do not monitor her every move. Do not overanalyze every post. That is reactive behavior. Focus on what you can control, your habits, your routines, your standards. Certainty within yourself creates uncertainty in those who expected your dependence. This is not cruelty, it's clarity. It allows natural consequences to unfold. If she truly valued you, time will magnify your worth. If she didn't, time frees you from illusion. Either way, you win, because you acted from strength, not fear. Repeat this to yourself. Stay steady, stay silent, keep improving. The louder your growth becomes, the quieter your neediness disappears. That shift is transformative. When regret turns into a wake-up call, it isn't because you argued better. It's because you withdrew better. You endured better. You mastered yourself better. Mastery is attractive across all eras, especially to mature women who recognize depth when it's absent. Hold your frame, trust stoic wisdom, cultivate an iron mind, embodied stoicism in action, not words. Time doesn't just test her feelings, it tests your discipline. The man who can let time work without interference commands quiet power, quiet respect, and often a quiet return. If this opened your eyes, don't just watch, move with intention. Like this video, subscribe for more sharp psychological insight, and most importantly, anchor this truth in your mind. When you stop chasing, when you go quiet, you reclaim yourself. When you focus on your growth instead of trying to prove your worth, something shifts. Silence creates space, space creates reflection, reflection creates realization. The longer you stay away, the louder her thoughts become. That's not manipulation, that's human psychology. If you understand the power of restraint, drop this in the comments right now. My silence speaks louder than my pursuit. Own it, live it. 5. Seeing you glow without us. Seeing you glow without her hits differently. Not at first, not in the loud dramatic days right after the breakup. It hits later, quietly, slowly, when she realizes you didn't collapse. You didn't beg. You didn't sit in the dark replaying old messages. You kept living. That's when it lands, when she sees you traveling, working out, smiling in pictures that aren't staged, building something real, peaceful, no bitterness in your tone, no passive-aggressive quotes, no subtle digs, just growth, just forward motion. That's when it hits hardest. Most men think the way to win is to chase, explain, convince. Don't. That's the fastest way to lose leverage. When you chase, you signal that your center is outside of yourself. But when you stop chasing and start glowing, the power dynamic shifts quietly, completely. You must understand this. Attraction thrives on emotional self-control. A high-value man doesn't force attention. He becomes worthy of it. He builds his body. He sharpens his mind. He expands his world. In doing so, he activates masculine energy in its purest form, calm, grounded, self-directed strength. When she sees you're not trying to impress her, something changes. We're no longer evaluating you. Now we feel evaluated. That's the twist. When you detach with dignity, when you focus on your own path, the frame flips. Now she wonders if she misjudged you. Now she feels the distance. Here's the key. It only works if it's real. If you post gym pics just to provoke a reaction, she'll sense it. If you travel just to make her jealous, it leaks through. But if you genuinely evolve, if you build a life that excites you regardless of who's watching, that is magnetic. That is when a high-value man becomes unforgettable. Women are deeply intuitive. They can feel the difference between performance and transformation. When your glow is authentic, it carries weight. It says, I lost something, but I didn't lose myself. That message lands harder than any late-night text ever could. Let time do its work. Don't interrupt it with emotional outbursts. Don't check in just to see how she's doing. Don't hover around her social media like a ghost. Be disciplined. Absence, when paired with growth, creates contrast, and contrast creates curiosity. The longer you stay away while leveling up, the deeper she unravels internally. Not because you're playing games, but because you represent a version of stability she can't ignore, and masculine energy that is no longer available to her. Now she's watching a version of you she doesn't have access to anymore. That's when the sense of missing you becomes heavy. It's not about revenge. It's not about punishment. It's about value. When a high-value man removes his time, his attention, his presence, and replaces it with progress, he naturally begins to attract women without forcing anything. Attraction shifts from effort to gravity. Be the man who upgrades quietly. Be the man who doesn't need applause. Be the man whose peace is visible. When she sees you glowing without her, she doesn't just miss you. She questions her decision. She replays conversations. She wonders who you're becoming. Here's the part most men overlook. She feels the loss more deeply when you look fulfilled. That's the psychology most people never discuss. When you are miserable, she feels justified. When you're angry, she feels distant. But when you are thriving, calm, focused, expanding, that unsettles her certainty. It forces reflection. It creates emotional tension. Masculine energy isn't loud. It's steady. It's directional. It's self-respect. You must become outcome independent. That means you improve, whether she comes back or not. You grow whether she notices or not. You win because growth is your standard, not your strategy. Here's the paradox. The moment you no longer need her validation is the moment you naturally attract women again. Not by trying, not by chasing, but by embodying grounded confidence that comes from self-mastery. So let her see you glow. Let her see your peace. Let her see your evolution. Then say nothing. Silence paired with progress speaks volumes. 6. The power of silence. Silence is not a game. It's not punishment. It's not manipulation. It is power. If you understand psychology and female psychology at a mature level, you already know this. What is not said often speaks louder than anything you could argue, explain, or defend. When you truly go quiet, not bitter, not passive-aggressive, not posting quotes for attention, just genuinely done, you create space, and that space creates tension. Don't confuse this with sulking. Don't mistake it for hiding. This is controlled absence. This is emotional discipline. Your silence becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, she's left alone with her thoughts. Without your reassurance, without your constant presence, without your predictable messages, her mind starts asking questions you no longer need to ask for her. Did I mishandle this? Did I push too far? Is he actually moving on? Did I lose a man who wouldn't have left unless he meant it? That is how psychology works. That is how female psychology responds to uncertainty. When you were always available, always explaining, always forgiving crossed lines, you removed mystery, you removed consequence, you trained her nervous system to believe you were permanent, no matter how she behaved. Don't do that. If you let her treat you as replaceable, she will test how replaceable you are. If you continue showing up when she withdraws, you teach her you are optional. Be clear, be steady, be a man whose presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. Women respond to the frame you hold. If you collapse it, they relax into complacency. If you maintain it, they respect it. This isn't about control. It's about self-respect. When you withdraw energy that isn't reciprocated, calmly, confidently, without speeches, you shift the emotional dynamic. You don't demand respect. You embody it. You don't threaten to leave. You leave quietly, cleanly, with dignity. That's when the silence becomes heavy. That's when your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Even if she walked away first, your emotional detachment can feel like rejection because it signals something deeper. You are no longer seeking validation. And deep down, many women fear one thing more than losing attention. They fear losing a man who knows his worth and no longer needs their approval to feel whole. Understand this clearly. Attraction is not sustained by overgiving. It's sustained by value, mystery, and self-containment. In today's world of constant texting, instant replies, and social media validation, men often overexpose themselves. Don't always be available. Be focused. Be building something. When she sees you traveling, training, laughing, expanding your life without chasing her reaction, that's when the emotional equation changes. That's when she begins to feel your absence in a real way. Silence gives her imagination room to work, and imagination combined with uncertainty is powerful. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Your silence proves you understand this. You're not trying to control her feelings. You are mastering your own. That is strength. That is rare. That is unforgettable. Many men misunderstand how to fall in love and how to create space for love to grow. They think constant reassurance equals connection. It does not. Healthy attraction requires polarity, space, and emotional self-control. If you're always explaining your value, you're already lowering it. If you constantly try to prove you're the better option, you position yourself as a contestant, not a prize. Don't compete. Don't chase closure. Don't argue your worth. Be the man who recognizes it without applause. When a man stops performing and starts living with quiet certainty, something shifts. She feels it, not because you were the nicest, not because you did everything perfectly, but because of how you carried yourself. When you stopped overextending, quiet, confident, detached, that version stays in her mind. That version creates contrast, and contrast creates clarity. When she compares the noise of others to your calm restraint, she notices. When she experiences men who overtalk, overpromise, overreact, she remembers the one who did not beg. She remembers the one who did not break frame. This is not about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to move. There's a difference. One is strategy. The other is identity. Psychology tricks only work when they are backed by genuine self-development. If your silence is fake, it will crack. If your detachment is an act, it will leak through. So build the real thing. Develop your body, expand your business, strengthen your friendships, deepen your purpose. When your life is full, silence becomes natural. You're not pretending to be busy, you are busy. You're not pretending to move on, you are moving forward. That authenticity is what makes female psychology respond at a deeper level. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to make her fall back in love, you become more attractive. When you focus on falling in love with your own mission, your own growth, your own discipline, you radiate stability and grounded energy. That's what mature women notice. That's what creates longing, not drama, not emotional speeches, not constant contact. Silence, stillness, self-command. Remember this. People value what feels scarce and solid. If you're endlessly accessible, your presence becomes background noise. If you are selective and grounded, your presence becomes meaningful. Don't chase, don't explain, don't plead. Be the man who can walk away without slamming the door. Be the man who can care without clinging. Be the man who knows that if something is meant to align, it will respond to strength, not desperation. And if it doesn't respond, you still win, because you protected your self-respect. That is the ultimate power of silence. It's not about breaking her, it's about building you. The longer you stay grounded, the deeper she reflects. The longer you invest in yourself, the clearer she sees what she lost, or what she must rise to meet. Either way you elevate, either way you grow, either way you master the emotional game, not by manipulating it, but by transcending it. Conclusion: let time break her. The longer you stay away, the deeper she unravels. Vertical bar. Psychology tricks. Before you go, let me leave you with this. If you've ever been taken for granted, don't beg for explanations. Don't chase closure, and definitely don't chase her. When a man runs after someone who undervalued him, he teaches her that his absence has no weight. But when he steps back, focuses on his purpose, sharpens his mind, strengthens his body, and rebuilds his standards, something powerful happens. He stops performing for attention. He starts living from self-respect. He becomes the man who doesn't need to be noticed, because he already recognizes his own value. That is the man people feel. That is the man who creates impact without noise. Time has a way of revealing what presence once protected. When you remove your energy, your validation, your consistency, the space you leave behind becomes real. And whether she comes back or not, you win, because you no longer need her return to feel whole. Here's my sincere advice. Never try to convince someone of your worth. Be the proof. Invest in your growth. Protect your peace. Let time do what chasing never could. If she realizes what she lost, it will be because you stood still, not because you begged. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever given your all and still been overlooked? Did she circle back, or did you choose to walk away and never look back? Share your story in the comments. I read them. These conversations matter. I respect every man here who chooses growth over ego. Stay steady, stay disciplined, and I'll see you in the next video.